All right, welcome everyone. I'm sure this is probably your last session before lunch. So without further ado, let me introduce your speaker today. This is Hubert. He is actually a philosophy major turned front-end architect with C. Help me with the company name.
CPro.
With CPro. And he actually has picked a really technical topic today. He's going to talk about UI5-mobx, which is a state management solution, but it's not your grandma's state management solution. This is reactive state management in UI5 that we're going to learn about. So in staying with the motto of the UI5con, let's learn something new today. Stage is all yours.
Thank you very much. Okay. I haven't prepared an agenda. Let's dive directly into it. So why do you want to use this stuff? So that's you, and you are developing UI5. You're usually using the OData model or the JSON model. And this usually involves two things, the OData communication as well as the state management. Let's imagine this is your typical code to retrieve data, for example. But as soon as you integrate TypeScript into that, you get into some problems. As you can see, there's a lot of highlighting going on there, mentioning some errors. You can mitigate that problem a little bit by casting it to a JSON model explicitly. But in the end, whenever you retrieve the data, you have no types for your data model. So you're left with any, which is not good, obviously. Then you get to the question, where do I get my data model from? Or where do I get the types for my data model? And OData 2TS provides a solution for that. It will give you those models. And in the end, you can, again, explicitly type your model. But at that point, you're always explicitly doing stuff, which is not the best way. You don't even know if it's a JSON model, if it's an OData model. That typing is also lost, as well as anything you put into that model. So, in combination with UI5 Live, we developed a solution, or at least one solution approach. And the idea behind that is to work with the state directly. So we don't hide the state in generic structures, but offer direct access. And this is what you work with directly with the state. To do that, we use MobxModel, and this is the reactive state management. We will see that in a second. It works with proxy objects, mainly. And it externalizes the state, and that's why I get to the title of this presentation. That's why it's turning the state management inside out. UI5-mobx is a little library which bridges the gap between UI5 and MobX. This is a little open source project. It's stemming from ideas from 2017. Someone invented it already. And it provides the model for UI5 as well as all the bindings. Currently, the context binding is not supported, but we get to that. So what does it entail? What do you need to do if you want to integrate that into your project? Just a quick overview. You have a little bit an advanced build setup. So usually you use easy UI5 with TypeScript, and you also need to use the UI5 tooling modules because we're working with NPM packages, and this is the way how you do it. The required NPM modules are UI5-mobx as always, and MobX because it's not, it's just declared as a peer dependency of UI5-mobx. And optional, if you want to do the OData communication, you would also install OData 2TS. Yeah, because the regular models usually do both things, and these would be the library to go to. I present OData 2TS in a different presentation later on, so I won't get into any details with OData 2TS. A short overview, this is how it looks like when you would take a look at the GitHub repository. So it's maintained on GitHub, it's MIT, and the key facts look rather ridiculous. It's experiment. But just to be honest with you at that point. A colleague of mine already used that in a productive application, so it actually works. Yeah, but the status of the project is definitely experimental. Missing stuff is currently the context binding. I need more tests and more documentation, definitely. Okay, let's get to MobX. And let's talk about the concepts of MobX. This is a typical, this is one of the typical explanations you get from the website. So in the middle, in this blue circle, you find the observable state. That's the main point of interest. And the actions will change the state. And then you have something like computed values. Move this screen. And you also have side effects, of course. That's the reactive part that you want to do, that you want to have automatic side effects at the end of your state manipulation. Let's take an example from the website. This is how a typical store looks like. So here you have the title attribute and the finished property. And you can see we call something here from MobX called make observable. And in the end, you also have an action which toggles the stuff. So here we have the observable state. Here we have the actions. They also do one other interesting thing. They can emulate transactions. So since any update of the state is atomically done, whenever you want to change multiple properties, you can wrap an action around it. It's just actually the function call action, and then you wrap all your changes around. So it behaves like a transaction and does all the updates in one go. The derivations, cool term. Yeah, whatever automatically responds to any state change is a derivation. And the most important things are the reactions, so that stuff re-renders in your front end. And the other cool thing are computed values. You will see that in a second. So let's take a look at the store again. So we just have a class exported in the end. And as you can see here, we have something like a search form with first name, last name, and people with an array, something like this. Here we also have a computed value. This is written as an JavaScript getter. And we also see an action at the end. So the store, the main functionality of the store is that it bundles all the state that you have. And I would recommend one store per domain, or take it like pages. If you have your search page, then you create one store for that. And if you're on the next page, then you also create a store for that as well. And you should never forget the initialization, this make observable. There's also make auto observable thing. It happens too often, and then nothing won't react. Nothing is reactive in that moment. Making stuff observable. You can do it manually. Like in this case, you see that search and people are observables. Reset search is an action, and formatted people are computed. You could also do that via annotations. Unfortunately, not in UI5, as you obviously know. But there's also an automatic way. So as you can see, the constructor changes right now. And then all of this is done automatically so that you have a shorter way. You can also do overriding. There are certain rules to it, or how MobX finds which stuff to type as what. Right. And in this example, reset search is not a setter, so we would need to override it as an action. There are certain pitfalls to it. Yeah, the most important thing at that point is that MobX creates proxy objects. And that's the main thing you need to know, because whenever you want to change something, it must exist beforehand. So that's especially a problem with objects. For example, if we would have something like selected persons, we don't know this in advance, create an empty object at that point, that won't work because the properties of that object are not known beforehand. So MobX cannot create a proxy object. Instead, use a map. This works. Why does it work? Because it has dedicated getter and setter methods. And then the proxying can work again. And if I haven't mentioned it before, never forget to initialize your MobX stuff with make observable. Last but not least, we have computed values. Computed values are derivations, as we have learned. You write them as JavaScript getters. This would be a better example here on the right-hand side. You see, with computed values, it would be extremely easy to have something like, or to implement something like client-side filtering. In this example, you can see we're filtering the people on the basis of the search form. And that's it. That's a computed value. And because it's a JavaScript getter, it just looks like a URL property. Okay. So it's derived from your state. Yeah, which means you're using your state inside this getter. And the result is cached. That's the most important thing. So you can, yeah, as long as the state doesn't change, it's cached. So it's ideal for expensive computation. Actually, it's for any computation. A really good place, and I can't stress it enough. That's really powerful stuff. Now let's switch to UI5-mobx. You install it via npm, as I've said, and you need to integrate it into the UI5 tooling, especially UI5 tooling modules. This is how the configuration would look like. Yeah, there's also a demo project. I will link it later. But this would be actually the complete setup with the transpiling and the module integration. And last but not least, you also have to extend the TypeScript config and add a path map. That's what you would need to do for any npm package. Okay, how do you initialize it? Here you see the complete code of it, including the imports. So UI5-mobx only offers a MobxModel, nothing else. It takes care of the bindings, of course, but that's implicitly done. So you only initialize the model with your store, and actually that's it. From here on, you never interact with the model again, because we wanted to externalize state. Okay. Now let's get to the demo. What's that? The audience's content. Okay, well, what do I want to show you? Okay, here you see the main controller. So much stuff in the way. I'm sorry. Okay, now I have to switch blindly between the tabs. I hope I make it. Okay, I've shown you the UI5 configuration. That was OData 2TS, and so start here with the main view. So we have two fragments. We have a main header and the main content. Within the main header, we can see a search bar or a filter bar. And in the body, we just have a result list. As you can see, the binding is just a typical binding of the table, nothing special. And in the main header fragment, it's also just binding the model to the properties we know. So actually nothing special, like you're used to use the models. Now let's see the initialization of it. So we see the MobxModel, which just takes the store. It's just imported from here. And after that, we have the search method. It calls OData to TS. This stuff is generated. It just does the query. It goes automatically to the right OData service, navigates to the people, and then does the query and case-insensitive search. And in the end, it does this. It just sets the people list on the store. So this is how it looks like. And now we just search, we would find all the people, hey. And if we do it like this, we should just find one. So it actually works. And the nice thing is it also supports double binding and stuff. So I don't need to do anything for setting those values. They just work out of the box. Actually, that's it, more or less.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. I think we all saw some really cool concepts to try out at home or during the lunch break. But before we send everyone to lunch, there is your opportunity to ask all the nagging questions that this presentation actually made appear in your mind, because now we have the expert here. So come on, come forward. What's your questions?
Thank you. So awesome presentation. The MobxModel. So maybe a little bit of background. So I recently played around with my own data binding library, and a lot of the concepts and struggles that you shared with the proxy objects and all that, I experienced those myself. So when I used the MobxModel, like, how did you do the list binding, like the rendering of the list? Is that also done with the MobxModel? So you can just map, like you can just say, okay, this list, take this array, and then UI5 handles that just like with the JSON model. So they're very similar in that regard, the MobxModel and the JSON model. Okay, cool. All right, that's basically all I want.
You can take a look at GitHub. There's the source code.
Yeah, okay, cool. Oh, very nice. All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, if there's no more questions, is there anything you want to add?
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.